I was a great writer of letters. I may have been one of the last great letter writers this country produced, if I may say so. And that was born out of two things. One, we never had a house phone, and the house phone never came to the family bedsit until September 1990, by which time I'd left school and lost a whole host of friends who, at that age were not keen to be receiving letters from other boys. When you're 15, 16, you want to be chasing girls or boys. And sniffing glue, I suppose, in the 80s, that was the thing. You don't want to be getting long letters from some classmate. Um, so I had to make do with letters because I had no house phone. Obviously, I would use public phone boxes a lot too, which is extraordinary given, how extensive my OCDs have been over the years. I still remember that I was using public phones pretty much every day going into the late 90s until I got my first mobile phone. I remember I would always use the right ear in a public phone box. I would go home, I would scrub the ear right away. That ear was always sore. I still haven't forgotten the smell of public phone boxes. Um, so that pushed me into becoming a great letter writer from a very early age, and I would be excited about sending so many of these letters. And I'm talking doing this until, my early to mid 20s. And I remember that I had two post boxes local to me, one heading towards Stockwell, one heading towards Brixton, Clapham North. And, I was having work commission from the time I was 18, 19, and I would always approach the post box, post in my work, and I would say, okay, this post box is going to play an important role in my life. This is an important thing. I'm trying to sell some work. I expect something good may happen from this. So I always held those post boxes, which are both still there, with great affection. At school, I ended up losing quite a lot of friends. Well, quite a lot. I was never that popular. I lost a few friends because, the last sort of week of school, when we were finishing our GCSEs, classmates were all exchanging numbers. Meantime, I'd be asking for their addresses and making sure that I had their postcodes right. So suffice to say, within a year or two, any classmates I was still in touch with or had hoped to be in touch with, that was over. That was over. It was over a dozen years before I got in touch, reconnected with one or two old friends from school, and that would not have been the case if we'd had a house phone. But still, I continue to write these beautifully long missives, and I kind of miss it. I kind of miss those days. Maybe I was born in the wrong era. Sometimes I think that, and then I think, well, I couldn't have really been born in any era where the outside loo, for example, was the standard feature of any home. I mean, we weren't far off that at Mayflower, but it wasn't quite as bad as that. So there's a very narrow window during which I could have existed, I think, in the history of this planet. But maybe I could have done with being born maybe 10 years earlier. I'd have had the comics writing career I craved. I would have been, had another 10 years to send out these letters. When email came in around the late 90s, with your dial-up connection, the novelty of that was exciting for a while. But then at the same time, I was still sending letters, and I was still so excited to see my name on an envelope, especially if it was a handwritten envelope, trying to guess whose handwriting that was. And to be fair, some of the letters I got back from people that I would write to were, I think as beautiful as what I was sending out. Some of the letters I've kept. I used to be in touch as well with my old college lecturer, the best teacher I ever had, and he would always remark how great it was, that I put so much effort into my letters. Maybe he was just being polite. I don't know. Either way, I've kept a couple of his postcards that he would send me every summer. But I miss that, and texts were, the SMS text was reasonably exciting when it came through or came into my life in the late 90s. I suppose that was the most exciting thing about having a mobile phone for me was the texting, 4p a text. It was just, I suppose that was the smartphone of its time. But these things by the early noughties, as I say, the novelty had worn off, and I was still sending out letters, getting less letters back. That was no longer a way people wanted to communicate in. These days, it's instant messaging. I've recently, just this year, had to reinstall WhatsApp for the first time in years, just for work purposes, and groups of friends from various circles have seen me up on there, and added me to groups, most of which have been muted now. And it's I think it's sad that we now communicate or desire this instant communication. Sure, it could drag sometimes waiting for a letter to come, but it would also be exciting. I remember, going into my Z bed at night, tucking myself in, thinking, I wonder if tomorrow morning, that letter will come, and the excitement of hearing the postman at the door, going downstairs into the communal hallway to see if that letter had indeed come. And I think there is a lot to be said for letter writing. There was an art to it. It was a skill that I had. I enjoyed writing those letters. I enjoyed receiving them. It's something I miss. It's something I don't really get much satisfaction out of the emailing. Instant messaging is just, I just think it's just dreadful. It's just more coming at you. Kind of slightly nostalgic for those days. Anyway, if you've liked this video, you can subscribe to the channel. Prompts round about here. I think I'll get this right now for the second consecutive video, and I hope that you enjoy your day, and that maybe there's someone in your life, someone older, 10, 20 years older, who isn't great on the internet, who might enjoy receiving a letter from you. Maybe you could try your hand at writing your own letter to this particular person. Make their day. You never know. Enjoy your day.